We're joined also by Robert Bates. He's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for joining us. Well, we have got this story this morning, and apparently it's very good value for money and it's totally justified. But we taxpayers are shelling out £3,000 a day to pay for new clothes and shoes for Channel migrants. How many? I mean, where are they doing the shopping? What sort of pricing bar are we looking at here?
Well, it's completely irrelevant where they're doing their shopping, because the fact is they don't need to be doing it. These people are already being incredibly well clothed by a whole cohort of charities that are bending over themselves and clambering over one another to be the ones that provide the footwear, the clothing. You know, anecdotally, if you stand outside a migrant hotel and observe the people coming and going, they're incredibly well kitted out. They've got perfectly white trainers on, they've got nice earrings, they've got a real fetch that effectively should put them on a catwalk. So the fact that we're having to shell out thousands of pounds each and every day to put these people in incredibly comfortable situation is ridiculous. This, of course, comes on top of the the other expenditures, the actual accommodation, the food, the bicycles that they're getting, the mobile phones. You know, the list goes on.
Wait, hold on a minute. Hold on. Whoa. Row that back a little bit. I mean, I was going to mention about the mobile phones. People give mobile phones, although it's weird because they all seem to have mobile phones when they are making their booking on the boat, and when they're on the boat, they're often filming themselves and the like, aren't they? But they've been given bicycles?
Yeah, there are accounts in certain councils around the country where these councils are working hand in hand with local charities and churches to actually provide these people with bicycles. And there's a really offensive image that I will never forget of seeing hardworking Brits on their way to work stood at a bus stop, sheltering, freezing cold, and you've got illegal migrants cycling past them on these brand new bicycles. So
where are they going?
Really stopped.
They're not on their way to work, are they? They're not allowed to work. Ha ha ha.
Well, an incredibly important business somewhere around the constituency, I'm in no doubt.
I mean, you're as angry as I'm sure our audience is right now at this. And the thing is, you think, OK, so I suppose people arrived on a boat and they've been capsized. They've only got one set of clothes. They're going to need clothes. They're in our care. What do we do? But as you say, if the charities are falling over themselves to give them all this clothing anyway, why on earth is the taxpayer being forced to fund any of it? I'm sure. And again, take them down the local charity shop if you need to do so. But I mean, what's amazing is this information only came out because, as always, a freedom of information request. It's never freely offered this, but the government has said it's justified. And the total cost, you think, £3,000 a day. That's not just for one migrant. It's a lot of people, but it's £4 million over the past 3 years. They say that cost is justified, and of course that comes on top of the, let's say, billions that's being spent on their accommodation, food, and other costs.
Yeah, you're right. So it is a small amount by comparison to the actual overall asylum bill, which, as we all know, is in the very high billions. But I think what it really represents is the contempt that there currently is in place, the two-tiered system that the British taxpayer is being expected to stump up the money, and it's not actually going to benefit themselves, benefit their families or their communities. It's going to these people who have shown absolute contempt for our laws and our borders and have broken into our country and are now living a life of Riley effectively at our expense across the board.
Yeah. I mean, I was wondering if someone, their house burns down, and unless you've got insurance, and an awful lot of people don't have insurance, does the government just come along and buy them new clothes and give them a bicycle and phones? I have a funny feeling that doesn't happen.
No, well, of course it wouldn't happen, because it would be happening to a British person. As we know at the moment, as we've seen over the last 6 or 7 years, the British establishment really do not care one diddly squat about our well-being. It's all about making sure that the ECHR is happy, that these international bodies aren't going to be looking over their shoulder and saying, oh, well, you're not quite adhering to your obligations under the Refugee Convention or, this charter or that charter. So the problem is we've got a professional class in politics that are predominantly from legal backgrounds and are absolutely terrified of offending any obligation that they think we've got.
Well, I mean, also just virtue signaling at the latest dinner party. Well, I mean, this news has come out on the day that we've got Labour's landmark law to tackle the small boats crisis. Sorry, quote, smash the gangs. Remember that? We're doing that. It's going to actually, this is interesting, it's going to retain the ban on migrants claiming modern slavery protections. Now, claiming a modern slavery, that was something that Theresa May had brought in, became basically a problem because everybody said they'd been trafficked. They absolutely hadn't paid £3,500 to the migrant boat people. They were trafficked to Britain. They are a victim of modern slavery. And when the Tories did actually plan to brought this in, Labour were apoplectic about it and saying how immoral this was and how terrible this was. But they've got their new law to tackle this, but they're going to keep exactly the same rules, that they can't claim modern slavery protections, i.e. get to stay in the country no matter what.
Well, I imagine that somewhere in Downing Street, people are starting to realise that the problem isn't quite as simple as they made out when they came up with their Smash the Gangs slogan, and therefore they're actually having to try and keep those measures in place that they were so appalled by whilst in opposition. Yes. Of course, this doesn't actually improve the situation. It just means that they're not going to make it worse, which is something, I suppose, given the standards of Keir Starmer's government.
I mean, that's as good as it gets with this government, isn't it? It's not going to get any worse than it already was. I mean, I'll take that as a win.
Well, precisely, and let's not forget they also said that they would not be removing the cap on those people coming via safe and legal routes. That was also introduced by the Conservative government. So we've now got the Labour Party effectively making their pitch. Look, we know things are bad, but we promise we're not going to do things that would deliberately make the situation even worse. And if that is really where we are in this issue with this crisis, then I think we are going to see the problem continue to rumble on all the way up to the next general election. And we know who that ultimately will benefit politically.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I cannot see this going away anytime soon. I mean, again, both illegal migration and legal migration. We saw those stats on legal migration only yesterday, or 2 days ago. Absolutely shocking figures. They really are. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert Bates. He's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control.